belong in this old house we made a home, even though it feels like something's dying. You were wrong when you said I'd given up, 'cause we both know the moment you stopped trying. Don't you think that it's the sort of thing you should have told me? Don't you think if you knew where we were going, you could have warned me? You could have warned me. Now I know I'll learn how to be without you, but my page is still turning now that I'm without you. Oh, I'm not crying, no, I'm not the fallen one. You went and arrested the sun, but it's gonna rise up. After all, the falling pieces hit the ground. I still don't love you any less than I did. Later on, we might look back at this and laugh, but right now it feels like I've been drowning. Don't you think that it's the sort of thing you should have told me? Don't you think if you knew where we were going, you could have warned me? You could have warned me. And I know I'll learn how to be without you, but my page is still turning now that I'm without you. Oh, I'm not crying, no, I'm not the fallen one. You went and arrested the sun, but it's gonna rise up. Oh, I'm not crying, no, I'm not the fallen one. You went and arrested the sun, but it's gonna rise. You went and arrested the sun, but it's gonna rise up.
Folks, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show, and we're here in Santa Monica, California, with an incredible musician, divine feminine priestess, Justine Bennett. Welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Thank you for having me.
Can you talk a little bit about, your intentions for getting into music?
Intentions for getting into music? I don't know if there was an intention. It just music was always it. It was always a thing that connected me to everything. Growing up was sort of the place
Can you
that I could
can you
go.
give an example of the connection?
Yeah. I don't know. I just remember being a kid and feeling like that was just my way to connect with the divine. I'm not really religious, but I grew up singing in a choir. So melody and listening to melody, and my mom was a piano player, so it was a way for us to connect, and felt like the one thing that maybe I was really good at, and I was pretty shy as a person, kind of introverted. so I could kind of be my outward self through music, I guess.
I dig. No, I mean you can
Yeah.
be yourself, but I mean, can you talk about the spiritual frequency? It's not organized religion that we're talking about, but the connection to the divine. Is there a way to put that into words, or give an example when you were young, when you experienced it?
I guess I can describe it as it's sort of like a energy cycle, and it's connected up there, but it's also connected with people, and it just sort of goes back and forth. You can feel it, like you're giving something, and then the audience is giving it back, and it's up there, and it's all around, and the vibration and everything just kind of combines, I guess. I don't know. It's hard to put into words.
No, you do. It's fantastic. I mean, I guess what I'm getting at is like you're talking about raising the collective consciousness, which is really the whole goal of music. But
Sure.
when you were a kid, when you were really young and you didn't really know anything, I mean, is that the first time you experienced magic?
Yeah, I guess that's a good way to put it.
Because there's only 2 letters that separate magic and music. And I'm curious about,
That's so true.
and so, I mean, how have you sustained that to today? I mean, you are somebody that has a lot of different projects going on, so you can sing for your supper. But how does can you talk about a magical experience that you've had, recently? The magic is still there.
I guess I can't think of anything specific, but when you just know that you're touching somebody, you're like reaching into somebody, and they're connecting to you, and they're connecting to your words, and they're connecting to the music, and it's maybe helping them through something, that makes me feel connected.
I dig. You grew up in British Columbia. Where did you grow up?
Yeah, I grew up in a really, really small town.
But was it a commune?
170 people, I think.
170 people. What was the name of the town?
Yeah, it's called Silverton, British Columbia.
Unbelievable.
It was a spot where a lot of draft dodgers went during the Vietnam War, and my dad was one of those men.
So he was a expat from the States, and
Yeah.
he dodged up there.
Yeah. He originally escaped to Montreal, and then had heard of this magic place, and a lot of people were going, and he went and started. I wouldn't call it a commune, but he bought a piece of land with 2 other couples, and they started a farm, and they had kids, and tried to be as self-sustainable as possible. The winters are long and hard, but it's a beautiful place. Like, I actually have a song I'm gonna sing today that I wrote about sort of longing to be back there.
Is it still 170 people? How big is it now?
Yeah, the population kind of fluctuates, like 2 or 3. Like if people die, but then like people are born. So
Wow.
It stayed really consistent, I think, throughout my lifetime. It's a tiny little village on a lake in a mountain valley, and it's
I mean,
super magic.
Justine, to me, like, is there a way for you to talk about the regional sound of Silverton? Was there a regional? I mean, we only really have one left here in the States, and I would say that's New Orleans, like a real regional sound, where we used to have it in every state.
Yeah.
Every region of the country had its own rhythm, its own sound.
I think that I represent the sound.
Good.
As I'm getting older and really finding like what my true voice is, and not trying to emulate anybody else, just trying to be who I am, I feel like now I am representing the sound of Silverton, I guess.
And what would that? Well, before you play the tune, what can you go a little bit deeper? What do you think that sound is?
It's very folky. It's.
I mean, but there's Canadians. I mean, there's
descriptive,
right.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to think of somebody that I could. I grew up listening to I grew up in a choir, so a lot of choral music, melody, like moving melody, was really part
I can't even imagine what this choir must have been like. I mean, it was not like some big congregation or anything like that.
No, it was a community choir. Anybody could join.
Wow.
Anybody could sing. It was sort of the thought that if you want to sing, you can sing. And we didn't read music. Nobody read music. So they would at that time there would be a cassette tape that they would put everybody's separate parts on, and you would just listen to that cassette over and over and learn the part and
Gordon Lightfoot still uses a cassette tape.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, because I mean,
So cool.
I don't know, the Canadians, there's an authenticity there that's different than here. But continue, please. So you have your own part on the cassette.
You have your own part on the cassette, and I just grew up learning to sing, and I wasn't really playing an instrument at that point, but learning to sing by ear. So it really trained my ear just to listen. And it's different than being music smart and like being stuck to the page where you have to follow what it's saying on the page. They both have very valuable things to offer. This was just sort of the path that I ended up on.
Well, like your mom, was she like a bebop player? Like what kind of stride player?
No.
What was she playing?
She played a lot of classical music.
So it was classical based music.
Yeah,
I dig.
classically trained. Yeah.
But would essentially like a large portion of the town get together and play music together? I mean, it's interesting.
Yes, yeah. We would have monthly coffee houses in the little gallery around the corner from the house, and anybody could get up and showcase. And I would, definitely from like 5 or 6 years old, I would go and play a song or two.
Why don't you work that song out for the audience right now?
Work it out?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is new. This is new.
This is about Silverton?
This is about, I mean, it could be interpreted a couple ways. I kind of wanted to try to write a song that was a love song for my hometown, but also could be interpreted as a love song for a person. So sort of like using my town as the character that you probably wouldn't know that it's about where I'm from if I didn't tell you.
Now we know.
Now
It's
you
so
know.
beautiful.
I know. So let's
Maybe it's 173 people now.
to do here. Yeah, maybe 173. It's always changing.
Ode to Silverton.
This is Ode to Silverton. Let me get it in the right key though. Yeah, I named this song Peace of Mind. Oh, am I right here? Hang on. I'm not. Gotta drop it down. I'm pretty obsessed with the Neil Young dropping the E to D thing.
You want to explain that to the layperson out there?
You essentially just take the E string, and actually I do it on either or. On another song I do it on the high E, and you just drop it down from an E to a D.
Right.
So it just changes the cadence, and it just changes the sound so much. But I'm not doing it properly here because I'm kind of nervous that I have.
Well, you're doing great. People are having a ball watching it.
Hang on.
I mean, any musician has to work it out, so.
There. And I lost my tuner, so I'm shamefully gonna just use it on my phone.
That's fine. There were no tuners in Silverton at the time you were growing up.
There were those, those pitchfork tuners. that
Pitchfork,
you put in
exactly.
your- You put in your mouth or something. Yes, technology has changed a lot since then. Although I don't think my hometown got cell phone service until maybe 5 years ago. So we're a little behind. I remember growing up, and I think we were about 10 years behind on everything. We really did not have access.
But, I mean, is it nostalgia for Silverton, or would you truly like to go back and live there?
It's definitely nostalgia. I've been in California over 15 years. I don't think my body could do a winter.
Right.
I really actually don't think I could survive 8 months of winter anymore. I'm such a wimp. But I think I sort of yearn for the simple life, and I wish that I could be okay with living that.
Yeah.
So it's sort of that, where I'm kind of...
Peace of mind.
It's peace of
It's
mind.
PEACE, right?
It's peace of mind, and it's also community where, I have community here, but it's not like that. When you grow up in a small town, it's essentially like you're growing up in a very large family. I went to school with half of my class from preschool until grade 12. So it's like you really you get to know people on such a deep level, and there's a caring that happens that it's really hard to find that other places. So I definitely miss that. And see, it's still not in tune. So this guitar that I'm playing right now it actually was my dad's. The rumor is that he traveled with the Peace Corps with this guitar, and it was kind of just sitting in our basement for a long time, not being played. It needed, the neck had warped so badly, because this was sort of they're trying to copy the Martin of the time. I don't know exactly the style of Martin, but harmony guitars were sort of the cheaper version.
Sure.
The top of it is actually made from plywood, which is amazing because it sounds so good. But I guess I inherited this guitar, and I had the neck steamed out and reset,
but it was being neglected in the basement, and you picked it up one day and you just worked it out.
And I worked it out, and I'm so happy that I did. It's turned into one of my favorite guitars to play. So I'm gonna play Peace of Mind, if I can.
Ode to Silverton.
Yes, Ode to Silverton.
In a live context, I remember talking to a great pianist, Mark Copeland, who used to play with Gary Peacock and these guys, and they were playing Paul Bley, and a lot of times, the espresso machine would be going, and they'd be playing kind of free music, jazz, and And when the audience would get too loud, Gary Peacock would say, you know what you do when they get too loud? You play softer. Mm-hmm. And so with your kind of music, if you are doing a solo performance,
Yeah.
because there's an urgency in your music, even though it's very lilting, how do you get people's attention? Because some cats just don't understand the significance and the spirituality of music. So how do you get them to lock in?
You don't try to get them to lock in. You just go. And like if they're gonna come with you, they're gonna come with you. If they're not, I don't think there's a whole lot you can do to like get people to pay attention. Either they're gonna pay attention or they're not, or they're gonna be into it or they're not. I spent 6 years as a street musician in San Francisco, and the sole purpose of that was to I guess try to get people to kind of bring people in.
You were busking on the street for 6 years.
Busking on the street.
I love
yeah.
this. This is great.
It's actually how I learned how to play guitar, because I would get like a very long evening slot, like 3 hours to fill, and so I just kept learning cover songs and cover songs and cover songs.
We're in the Tenderloin, or where was it?
It was down in a place called the Cannery, Fisherman's Wharf. There's like a little courtyard down there.
Beautiful,
with
yeah.
a stage.
So you'd get a 3-hour gig, and so talk a little bit about that experience. That must have been absolutely vital. That was something that was free will on your part.
Yeah, it was. When I moved to San Francisco, I really knew that I wanted to pursue music in a different way than I had before. I always sang and I always did that, but I really wanted to do it as the thing that I do. But I didn't really know how to play an instrument, so it kind of was preventing me from being able to just go out and do it. So I started taking a few lessons, and then just really started playing and playing and playing, and the more hours, like that Malcolm Gladwell thing is really true. Like, you can't learn something unless you really dedicate the hours, and guitar playing is for sure like that. Like, you just have to put the time in. There's no other way to get good at guitar. So,
can you talk about co-joining that experientially, like in front of an audience? You're learning on the bandstand, essentially. You weren't in a room by yourself working it out. I mean, you were
right. But the nice thing is like, if you're not good, they're not going to pay attention. So like, you can go through like a good long period of not being that good, and nobody really cares, but you're still up there and you're doing it, and it's like you have these hours that you have to fill, so you just have to get good, I guess. It sort of pushes you to get good.
Can you talk a little bit about the experiences? Like, I think you made a good point before about you're not going to try to force anybody to lock in to your performances, but what did you learn about audiences when you were busking?
They all were looking for a way to connect. Like, they wanted it. So to give them that opportunity, they were really grateful for that.
What do you mean they want? They were actually seeking a connection.
I think everybody is. So yeah, it was when you did lock in with people, it really felt it was almost like you won, like you won them. Kind of like a game. It felt a little bit like a game. Like, can my voice that's reverberating out through this, out into the street, like as I'm watching people, sort of like the Pied Piper, like I'm watching people kind of like gather in from all of the different corners. That felt really good. It felt really good.
And words, you don't need any words to describe it. It's all just unfolding right in front of you. But I get the feeling that with your voice, because it's absolutely transcendent, that there are people that would come watch you. This is not on the street per se, but at a gig, and they really want to get into that space. And I just look at, I guess here's the question. You do come from an incredibly small village town.
Yeah.
You put yourself out there in San Francisco. You're down here now. But how do you think the significance of music has changed in our culture? Yonge Street in Toronto, there was that cross section of David Clayton Thomas, Joni, Neil Young, Gordon Lightfoot. They were all learning from each other. But people came to wash away the dust of everyday life to these performances. Sometimes now you get the feeling that people are there and it's mainly for background music.
Sure.
You know, and I'd like you to talk a little bit in your mind about how the significance of music has changed, and how you know, how you don't let that affect you on the bandstand. Because I got to believe that there are people that want to lock in with you, and then there are people that are not. I could see I could see the audience having some contention between each other. You know.
Yeah. I think you don't get into music expecting people to listen. Like, if you are into
That's fast. Yeah, you just
yourself, then then that might come or it might not come. The significance of music, I don't think the significance of music is ever going to really change. The audience for sure has changed, but there are still people who you know, music is everything to them. So I think it's maybe just finding those people. It's not such a collective thing anymore, like the Pete Seeger sing along to, you know, raise everybody's consciousness vibration, and also to change something. I don't know that really exists anymore. I wish that it did.
Yeah, I think you're nailing, because it's the social consciousness component of it is not the movement music. I think is not where a lot of pop music today is also made for pacification, and I think that's the only thing I'm concerned about as it relates to my daughters and future generations is can they detect when it's all just machines? You have people that are, I mean, you're singing to the stars, but there are people that are making huge amounts of money and they're not even authentic. They can't even perform live.
Yeah.
So it's based.
Well, I feel like there is a great divide. like true musicians and whatever pop music is or whatever popular music is now. It's getting larger and larger, and people who want real music are going to seek it out, and people who don't are not. And I think there are more people who are really seeking out real music than we think. Live music is still a way that musicians can make a living. People want to come to live shows. They want that connection. They're so disconnected in every other way in their life. They are really yearning for that connection. That's why, like, music festivals and concerts, and people are still really coming, like, more so I think now than they were before. So I don't know, it's changing. I don't know if it's for the good or for the bad, but there's going to be a great equalization at some point, I think.
You think it'll be in our lifetime?
I do think it'll be in our lifetime. Yeah.
There was a saying in the 1970s. David Lindley said that, you know, never trust a musician that doesn't have an instrument in their hand.
Okay.
What was the? I mean, because you could have gone and become a studio shark and just sang. I'm sure. Was there a crossroads for you as it related to just being a singer? And did you feel an obligation to develop your craft on a particular instrument?
Well, I wanted to be able to write songs, and I don't know that it's.
So you wanted that.
I needed like a vehicle to be able to write. So that was also a reason. Yeah, I mean, I think people who just sing are just as valuable, but just for me, I just needed some. I didn't know how to go about figuring out how to sing with another person or have somebody. I didn't want to like pay somebody to play for me. There were like a lot of factors, I guess. And the musicians now that I'm friends with who only sing, you know, it's a lot harder for them because they do have to pay for a band and they can't just go out and do a show on their own. I love that about being a singer-songwriter and try to incorporate what I write now on the guitar. You try to sort of fill all the spaces with that musically with an instrument, and that's really challenging to like have the rhythm and kind of fill in all the parts that maybe a band would take with your voice and one instrument. It's really a challenge.
Have you been able to, like, what is the touring circuit like for Justine Bennett? I mean, in the sense that, like, either what is it or what do you want it to be? I mean, because I could see you take a working band back to Silverton and have a ball there.
Sure.
You go across the Rockies up there, Medicine Hat and all those places. But, I mean, Is that something you've already done? Is that something that you're trying to cultivate? Where are you at in that?
Like with touring my own music?
With a band, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I did one run up to my hometown with a really good friend, Jamie Drake. We're collaborators, songwriters together.
Double acoustic guitars, singer?
Yeah, double acoustic
Beautiful.
guitars and harmonies. That was amazing. I would totally do that again. Taking a whole band up there, I don't see how that could happen. It's just too expensive to travel with people. You see, like, artists now, they're all downsizing.
Or they're sleeping on the tour bus, or they're finding ways to.
Yeah.
And again, these are people that already have huge name recognition. But this is the where the rubber meets the road for Jake Feinberg, is to say, how do we get Justine Bennett on the road with a seriously burning quartet where you can actually walk away with a little bit of money?
That would be so great if you figure that out.
But is it just the crushing cost of living that is preventing you, aside from finding the musicians that you lock in with? I mean, is it the cost, and is it also the fact that a lot of the mentality now, because we've been talking about the magic of music and the spiritual quality of music, essentially it's music, as you know, that is unquantifiable.
Yeah.
And we live in this data-driven time. So you wind up going to these watering holes in Wyoming or in, and they say, okay, you can pay to play.
Right.
Or you can play for the door.
Right.
Since when did that happen? Because that to me says that fundamentally you can't quantify music. Therefore, music is not really a profession, and they don't really need to be compensated for it. Do you agree with that? I mean, do you feel like that's another struggle? I mean, are you always in situations, even locally, where you're getting paid for the gig?
LA is just sort of its own animal as far as that goes.
When you went with Jamie, were you playing, did you get that vibe?
Yeah, well, we did a house concert tour, so
that's good money, actually. There,
yeah, it'd be great. But the house concert thing, I think, is like the best way to do it, because you only get people who really love music. They're seeking it out, and they're really generous. They always buy merch. They give you, if each person gives you $20 and there's 30 people there, it's great.
Dude,
And then we did a concert in my hometown, so it's only 100 and whatever people. They all came.
So I hope there's video footage of that. That must have been magical.
I try to do a hometown concert like once every couple of years when I'm there. It's cool because it's sort of, as I progress as an artist too. These people have seen me sing since I was 5, and then every year.
And it's not like the town's getting that much bigger.
It's not getting that much bigger. Yeah, it's very, very sweet. I would love to be able to take a band on the road. Yeah, just financially, I don't see really how it's possible. 2 people, it's doable, especially between Jamie and I, because we're both solo artists, so potentially we can do like our own solo thing and then do something together and kind of.
No, I mean, but like just segueing out into the echoes of the canyon.
Oh, Echo in the Canyon.
Echo in the Canyon. I mean, they're gushing money with that. I mean, you're working with Jacob Dylan. There's this huge gap, where that doesn't seem to be an issue. But when it comes to I just, what it is, a lot of record companies back in the day took chances and cultivated artists like yourself.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like you had 10 minutes to make it or break it. Like you could go
Artist development.
Cultivate, yeah. I mean,
that doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
Now that if you're going to get signed by a label, you are going to do all that work yourself already. It's going to be done, and then maybe they'll look at you. But you have to have a certain amount of followers already, and you have to have an album done already, and there's all these things. So yeah, the artist development thing doesn't seem like it's really even a thing anymore, unless you're part of the machine and it's like a real pop thing.
You're right. What is your talking to people around the world, younger cats who are inspired by you or who want to do the same thing that you're doing? How do you overcome that, knowing that there's no I don't know, machine's the wrong word, but you have to wear 6 hats. In fact, you can't really even spend. Although you're cranking out new material, it's hard to just concentrate on writing good music.
Oh my gosh, it's so hard. If I could just go like for a month to a cabin, yeah, that would be
Like Dylan or Alan Toussaint used to go and write those charts.
But yeah, as it stands, like definitely not making my living doing music. Hate to say it. My boyfriend and I, we've got a zillion things going on. We run, 2 Airbnbs in Joshua Tree, and he works and I work other things. It's just like the juggle, and you sort of do something to afford yourself to do the music. It's that part of it really is a drag. I wish that there were still people out there who had a lot of money who felt like, artistry was valuable and important. And I guess I feel like there used to be musicians and then rich people, and rich people would help musicians. And it was this like back and forth, and everybody was getting something.
Well, they were viewed. I mean, a lot of cats were viewed as geniuses. I mean, Dizzy Gillespie, Miles Davis, they were never millionaires, but they were.
Right.
They made okay money, and they were they were treated with the same respect as doctors and lawyers.
Yeah.
That's not the same anymore.
Really.
It's like, music is a musician's gift to the world.
Well, but it's also
Thank God for Joshua Tree, man. I mean, you're not the first cat that's
I know.
and so, but it's a drag because this is your calling.
Well, and like yesterday, for example, not complaining because I'm so grateful for everything that I have, but I was trying to be creative and I was trying to write, but then it was like ping, and then I'm like, oh, okay, I'm on Airbnb, and then I'm like, okay, now I'm going back to my creative. Ping, oh, okay, I'm on to, so it's like you're back and forth, and your brain is like trying to do both things, and it's so, one is so linear and the other is so not, and yeah, it's really hard to juggle.
You got to turn the phone off when you're writing. I mean, that's part of the issue with, I think that's the significance of music too, is that a lot of people listen to music and they're multitasking now, as opposed to just completely locking in on the music itself. Can you talk about a time in your life when you faced some adversity and ultimately how you overcame it and how it made you a stronger person?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I guess like musically, the hardest thing that I've had to go through is when I was in my early 20s. I started losing hearing in my right side. I started going deaf, and didn't really know why, and thought it was, I don't know. I thought it could have been because I used to work in a nightclub and it was really loud, and then through investigating and years of doctors found out that I had this hereditary bone disorder called otosclerosis in my ears that caused deafness. That's like what Beethoven went deaf from. So that was really tough. That was quite a time of reckoning.
The diagnosis was tough, or just the idea of how did it affect you? I mean, did you get closure because you figured out what it was, or was it just the idea of losing some capacity to play and hear?
Yeah, it was the fear of losing capacity to hear, which would mean that I couldn't sing anymore, really. But miraculously, it's one of the hearing disorders that's actually reversible.
Well, this is totally really it's reversible.
It's reversible to a point. Like you can gain a lot of hearing back by getting a surgery where they replace your the tiniest bone in your body, the stirrup bone, in your ear with a Teflon bone. So it's like this microsurgery. They replace the bone, and then the sound can vibrate again. Essentially, the bone gets calcificated in your ear, so it can't vibrate anymore when sound is coming in. So if they take the calcification away, then it vibrates again, and you can regain some of your loss. So I went from, I think, like probably 90% loss in my right ear to back up to within normal ranges hearing.
Something tells me you would have figured out how to sing and play anyway, even if you went totally deaf.
Yeah, well, the great thing is that you can still, with this disease, you can still hear inside, like the vibrations inside. So when I'm speaking, when I'm singing, you can still hear what's happening inside
Did it fundamentally like change your point of view?
Yes.
In what way?
Well, I made a promise to myself that if I was able to fix it, that I would dedicate my life then to music. It was no more like, oh, I'm gonna, work at a bar and play music. I'm gonna move to LA, and that's what I'm gonna do. So, and that's what I did.
People want me to stop talking. Can you finish with another original tune for us?
I can. Okay, should I?
Justine Bennett. I mean, please sign this woman, get her on tour, and get her back to Silverton with
Back to Silverton
the
band.
with a quartet, with a burning quartet.
I think I'm gonna play a song that I wrote this week because I'm crazy like that.
Great. Break it out.
Sort of trying to go for a Nick Drake, Joni Mitchell mashup. I think with this one. This one is called "For All of Time." As the sun goes down over the hillside, and the day begins to close, I want to go wherever you might be going. I want to lying past the golden hour until our worries fall far behind. Under the light of the moon that shines down upon us. Under the over the river running below us, into the clear blue morning sky. I want to fly wherever you might be going. I want to Now I can feel you when the wind blows, in every star that ever shines. For all of time, I know that I've loved you. For all of time. For all of time.
Justine Bennett, keep kicking butt. All right. It was an honor to have you on the program.
Thank you for having me.
We'll see you in Silverton.
Okay.
This is the Jake Feinberg Show. See you later.